Today, we're getting godly. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, and welcome to today's spoiler discussion about a brand new card from War of the Spark that is super exciting to me. We're going to talk today about Bontu. Now, before we get into the actual spoiler card, this is going to be one of the videos where we lay a bunch of stuff out first and then dive into the meat of the card, because you're definitely going to want to understand the backstory. And if your name's not Jeff, well, it's time to leave, because this discussion is just for me and Jeff, all right? It's definitely not about you, all right? My name's definitely. Okay, that nonsense aside, let us talk about Bontu. So you need some background information. Now, admittedly, I have said in previous videos that I'm tired of Nicol Bolas, and that's true. But we're going to talk about the coolest thing that Nicol Bolas has ever done. You may differ in opinion about this, but for me, what Nicol Bolas did on Amonkhet was absolutely amazing. So much so that I kind of wish they had introduced a new villain to have done it, because it's so cool that this would have established that villain as somebody to be respected and feared and admired, because it's very ambitious. Basically, he reworked the entire plane of existence into, it turned it into a weapon factory. What happened was Nicol Bolas went to the plane of Amonkhet. Now, he noticed that they had religious rituals where once every few decades, they would have a massive combat trial where they determined worthy victors and things like that. And it was all based around the suns, right? Around like a solar cycle, where at a certain time they would be like, okay, it's time for our, it was like their Olympics, but they were like all bloody and combat style. And they happened very infrequently. So what Nicol Bolas did was amazing. First of all, he wiped out all adult life on the entire plane. And then on top of that, he went ahead and reworked the way that the solar cycles work and changed it so that this triumphant combat would happen far more frequently. Now, to make this happen, one of the things he had to do was take all of the gods on this plane. This plane already had a bunch of gods that were worshipped by the people, and these gods actually dwelt amongst their people. These weren't gods high up in the heavens that people didn't know. This was a world where the gods actually dwelt amongst their people. And there were a number of these different gods. Bontu was one of them. What Nicol Bolas did was he subverted the minds. He took control of the minds of all of these gods. Now, some of them he set out amongst the people. He took the gods like Hazaret, Bontu, Kefnut, and he set them amongst the people, having wiped the part of their mind that let them remember the past when all the adults were alive and all of that, but kept the whole religious cycle and all that concept firmly in their mind, made them a whole big part of it as well. And through all of these machinations, basically he set it up so that there would be a constant cycle of people striving to get to the afterlife, to be with the god pharaoh, Nicol Bolas. That was the end result, was you would get to be with Nicol Bolas. Now, he didn't take all of the gods and put them amongst the people. He actually took some other gods and he set them aside for a different purpose. So the locust, scorpion, and scarab gods were all hidden away from the world and basically were unknown to most of the people. They were wiped from everyone's memory. So we've got a plane where all adult life is gone. You just have children being brought up in this cycle. And the concept behind it was unworthy and worthy dead. There was no escaping that your life would end. You would basically be set into this path of trials where you would have to accomplish all of these things, and along the way, all the unworthy ones would be weeded out and they would be embalmed and dressed up like mummies and used as servants. Basically, because there were no adults in the world at the time, they would raise up the kids into adults. Those adults would end up all getting wiped out and turned into worthy or unworthy dead. The unworthy dead were just used as slaves to raise up the next generation And it would be rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And the idea behind it is you were supposed to try and make it through all the trials of all the gods up to the point where you would face Hazaret. And if you were able to make it to Hazaret and end your life in combat with Hazaret, you would be considered the worthy dead, the ultimate prize. Now, unbeknownst to any of the plane's inhabitants, what would happen? Well, most of the plane's inhabitants. We'll get to the exclusion. Unbeknownst to most of the plane's inhabitants, when you became an Eternal and were moved into this phase, that just meant you were eternalized. You were covered in Lazotep, and that was the responsibility of the Scarab God to help create these Eternal warriors, where they would cover them in Lazotep plating and all emotion, all love, everything like that drained out of them. They would just become unthinking and incredibly powerful undead. So the idea was you would have all these people fight against each other to determine who was the best, and then the cream of the crop would be brought into Nicol Bolas's army. And at a certain point, for some actual unknowable reason, I don't understand why Nicol Bolas stopped the process and waged war on the city and took out his gods. Because as far as I understand, you could have just kept this going and kept his army going and growing and had reinforcements. So to me, that part of the storyline's a little bit wonky. Now, Bontu was actually in league with Nicol Bolas, actually helped Nicol Bolas conquer Amonkhet, and was unknowing to the other gods, and they're all siblings, these gods are all related, basically betrayed her own god family, trying to strive for her own ambition. So we actually saw that the original god card in Bontu the Glorified. She is a crocodilian god because all the different Amonkhet gods have different animal natures. So a crocodilian god, looking very godly there, standing up amongst the people. I really like this artwork. It has a real venerated feel, where they're standing there with the staff being glorified, all these people standing around her in veneration, worshiping, and cast up against a dark sky with the sun somewhat covered. I really like that because it gives kind of a dark feeling to it, the hiding of the light, that works. Overall, the card's pretty potent. 1 black, 2 colors for a 4/6 with Menace and Indestructible. Bontu the Glorified, can't attack or block unless a creature died under your control this turn, and the ability is sacrifice another creature, scry 1, each opponent loses a life, and you gain a life. So, this fits very well in with the concept of Bontu. Bontu is an unforgiving god who's very much about, you must strive to be worthy for a Papa Bolas. So you can see that on things like Bontu's Monument, where you take a look at the flavor text on Bontu's Monument, and it says, the worthy shall strive for greatness. Supremacy in life leads to supremacy in the afterlife. So that is the whole goal. You can see how evil the followers of Bontu are as well, because each of these gods would have viziers that serve under them and teach the lessons of the gods, and you can see those like betrayed in the flavor text of things like Scarab Feast, where you can actually see some of the unworthy dead being eaten by insects. And the flavor text says, the face of mediocrity is wrapped in anointed linen. Aspire to a better end. And for those of you who don't know, anointed linen is the wrappings that these regular everyday mummies are wrapped in. You need to strive for something better. You need to become an Eternal. And that's a quote from one of the viziers of Bontu. The most amazing card to demonstrate the absolute just horrific nature of the followers of Bontu and how harsh they are is Painful Lesson. This card is a home run in terms of flavor. I really, really enjoy it. 1 black, 2 colors. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. And the flavor text and the art are where it gets intense. You wish to remember this lesson? I will write it down for you. And that's a Vizier Bontu. And you can see they actually etched it into this person's flesh. In their hands, you can see the sides of the pyramids with, you have people bowed down in veneration and an exalted dead, one of the ones to be eternalized, raised up on the top. That is really, really epic and really, really harsh. Can you imagine that? They carve it into your hands. That's intense. And you've got some more intense stuff going on when you take a look at the card Unburden as well from Amonkhet, where the flavor text says ambition requires clarity. If you have any doubts, they must be abandoned. And you can see a Minotaur down on his knees in supplication, making an offering to the goddess, and it's his own blood. And you can see it actually comes. He's unburdened his own mind. He's like cut into his own head and leached his own thoughts and brain matter into this crazy vessel. It's amazing. The flavor on that is really, really epic. So what happens is, Bontu's a part of this whole plan. They're going through all of these stages. Nicol Bolas finally decides to invade the last set on Amonkhet and finish what he's doing there. It still kind of bothers me the way that played out, but either way, let's put that aside. Bolas pulls down the protective shelter around the only city on Amonkhet that's safe, the Hekma, the protective barrier that was stopping all the undead from getting in, and he invades with his Locust God, Scorpion God, and the Scarab God as well. So they all end up invading. Now Bontu is supposed to slay Hazaret, but fails. And Bontu goes to Nicol Bolas and is basically like, basically loyal to the last. You can even see it in Bontu's Last Reckoning. If you take a look at that card, you can see Bontu rampaging through the general populace, just destroying people. And what is Bontu's Last Reckoning? Destroy all creatures. That's what it does. Obviously it doesn't let your lands untap as well, but that's not part of the flavor, really. It's the, well, I mean, there is the flavor of this is your last stand, you're never going to get to do anything again. But Bontu's Last Reckoning is wiping out all life. And it says, to the last, Bontu wanted only to be the first among the god pharaoh's subjects. Now put a pin in that, because we're going to come back to it, and it's kind of cool what happens. But Nicol Bolas wants Bontu to wipe out Hazaret. Bontu fails. Nicol Bolas actually destroys Bontu himself. So it's kind of tragic in a way. Bontu just wants to make Daddy happy, and at the end of the day, Daddy's like, you gotta go. And that's rough. That's rough for Bontu. What happens afterwards, though? Bontu gets eternalized. They actually create Bontu as a zombie god, zombified god. How cool is this concept? Let's take a look at the new card. 2 black, 3 colors for a legendary zombie god with menace. You can see in the artwork that this is an eternalized crocodile god. This is an eternalized version of Bontu shown in front of Ravnica. So, been transported to Ravnica, here to wreak absolute havoc. Let's take a look at what you get. 5 mana gets you a 5/6 menace. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice any number of other permanents, then draw that many cards. So still has the same sacrificial flavor of the original Bontu. When God Eternal Bontu dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it into its owner's library 3rd from the top. This is the new mechanic they're using for the gods to represent that they keep coming back, their godhood. So you can keep putting her back 3rd from the top in your deck, keep getting her back. She keeps coming back. I really enjoy the underlying flavor of she only wanted to be first amongst Nicol Bolas' servants. That's all she ever wanted. And in a way, that's what she got, because these God Eternals are first amongst the servants of Nicol Bolas. I really, really, really enjoy the concept of the gods, them all being subverted, and then at the last, Nicol Bolas even turns them into Eternals in his service. And in a way, it's kind of sweet for Bontu, because it's all she ever really wanted. She wanted to be highly raised among Nicol Bolas' servants, and she is. Although, tragically, I don't believe she can enjoy it, because as a zombie Eternal, she will have all of her emotions and thoughts from previous lives stripped away. So she's what she wants to, she's what she always wanted to be, but she can't enjoy it. And there's a tragedy there. Yes, Bontu is obviously an evil character. That's how it works. That's why she's black aligned. Black is the color of evil in Magic the Gathering, right? But there's, I don't know. There's just this sweet level to me where it's amazing and tragic that she gets what she wants, but can't properly enjoy it. So that's pretty rough. Now, that's my opinion on this. I absolutely love the flavor of the Amonkhet gods, and I love this trajectory where they've had everything changed away. Bontu wants to be a follower of Bolas, tries to serve as well as she can, falls up short, but still ends up being eternalized, which is the greatest honor that someone dying on Amonkhet can have bestowed upon them, according to their warped belief system. So let me know what you guys think about all this. I'm jacked. I think it's a fantastic card. Absolutely love it. And we're going to roll the Golden Scroll. The people have my back on Patreon or through channel memberships. Thanks very much for supporting my channel. Appreciate having you here. And to everyone I say, I shall see you guys tomorrow.